afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first session of the Palliative Care webinar series titled Create Your Own Tree of Life. My name is Anna Dowd and I'm the manager of the Barwon South Western Region Palliative Care Consortium. I'll be the facilitator for this afternoon's session. This Palliative Care webinar series is brought to you by the Barwon South Western Region Palliative Care Consortium in collaboration with the Western Victorian Primary Health Network. I'd like to begin with the acknowledgement to country. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land on which we stand. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people present here today. First of all, we're just going to start with a bit of housekeeping. This is the first in a series of palliative care webinars, the next running once a month until the end of June. So you can see the titles there, and hopefully people will log on and enjoy more of the webinars over the next few months. This webinar is going to be recorded and you'll be able to access the recording freely on the PHN Learn YouTube channel. The links will be coming up in the chat. We will put the link to access recorded webinar events into the chat also. Sorry. Just if you will get a certificate of attendance for this webinar. If you haven't registered with your correct name, just make sure that your name goes into the chat correctly. Also, if you're watching this with somebody else, make sure that everyone's name is put into the chat so you each get your attendance certificate. For this afternoon's webinar, all participants will remain on mute and your camera will not be on. Any questions, I would like you to request that you put them in the Q&A box, and we will have time for questions at the end of the presentation. There'll also be a survey at the end of the presentation via the QR link. So we would really value your feedback. So that's it for housekeeping. Oh, sorry, one more thing. Most people who registered would have got a message saying that for today's webinar you need some paper, coloured pencils. It is interactive and you will be making your own, as we say, tree of life. So we'll just give you a couple of minutes if anyone hasn't got what they need, just take a couple of minutes to go and get them. While that's happening, I'd just like to introduce Amanda Myring. Amanda works for Barwon Health. She is a counsellor and spiritual care worker. She has extensive experience in not just Barwon Health, but Peter MacCallum as well. So we're very lucky to have Amanda at Barwon Health. So I will hand over to Amanda for the presentation.
Oh, thanks, Anna. So Anna's doing all my love for starting and getting things. I will just say that presenting on this platform is not my forte of expertise. I'm very used to being in a room sitting with families and with patients and people, sort of guiding them through what their needs will be. So I think we've got it set up, haven't we? We're ready to go.
We're ready to go, yes.
So now I'm going to, just a little bit of a preamble. When Anna came to me and sort of asked if there was some sort of idea or thought bubble I might have with how we could look at promoting as a springboard for these webinars, with the focus being on self-care, I was sort of initially a little bit, oh, what will we do? Self-care. But then I was reminded 6 months or so ago, I actually took part in a webinar myself and created my own tree of life. And what was really stood out to me was the therapeutic process that lays behind it. And I'll give you a little bit of background on that as we move through the session, or the introduction of the session. So this is my take on sort of the tree of life and how we can use that as a metaphor for us to sort of build our own tree of life. Just reflecting that today it is, thank you for those that have joined us and also for those that may join later when they view this back. I know it's very difficult for staff to get together in a common time. So I think the notion of it being recorded is wonderful, and I appreciate the efforts with that. So before we make a start, I sort of was drawn to my own heritage and my own Celtic roots. So I sort of thought I would, let's just check if that's going to load. Apologies. So I wanted to sort of draw on that, the Celtic tree of life and the metaphor. And when I did a bit of a search, just a random Google search, and this is what came up, and I thought it's very appropriate for today. So setting the pace, setting the scene. So this is symbolic of the connection between heaven and earth, mind and body, the physical and the spiritual. In this way, the tree of life also represents the incessant cycle of life and the gift of rebirth, something that we're very aware of with our work in palliative care. So now I will, the origins of the Tree of Life tool, I wanted to sort of pay reference to that. It's not something that I've made up, but I've modified from my learnings. And it was actually utilised within groups after violence or supporting families post-trauma. And the Tree of Life was developed over 20 years ago by a psychologist in South Africa. And it was used with children and orphans and people that had suffered multiple traumas and losses as a result of the HIV and AIDS. Now, I've put in there the link, so if you're wanting to do further research about this process and where it originates from, the Dulwich Centre has quite a breadth of information on there. It's actually a tool that I've sort of been able to use and modify within my practice in supportive care work and within the team. And I've utilised it with patients and with people as we're rounding off sessions that they have sort of done. So it's a really nice way to celebrate where they've been, where they've come from. And I utilise it in that way. So, and I was drawing upon this, and that by no means am I an art therapist. That is completely not my forte, as you will see when you see my own Tree of Life that I will hold up soon. But it's something that is a lovely modality to use with people. So in the counselling space that we find ourselves in. So what to expect from today? So I'm aiming to offer a reflective space for you to create your own colourful, and I emphasise the word colourful, tree of life that's unique to you, that symbolises and celebrates your achievements and your skills, knowledge, the values that you hold dear, and cherished hopes for the future. This is an opportunity for you to remember and honour the connections you have and have had with important people in your life. So during the session, my aim is, again, that you'll be able to have that reflective space to consider the elements that contribute to your whole personhood, to raise your awareness of your own strengths and dreams, which can enhance your self-care, such as rest, nourishment, relationships and connection, and foster resilience that you can draw upon through challenging times. Also to cultivate, nurture and grow your own well-being, and committing, that's the big part, committing to developing the strategies and setting intentions that can fertilise your self-care needs to reduce the burnout and help to combat compassion fatigue. So I hope I live up to all of these standards. They're a little bit daunting when I look at them. But first, I think I'll ask myself this question, and it's a very powerful quote that keeps with me since I first read it. So it's by Stephen Tovey, a business strategist. And he says, seek first to understand yourself before understanding others. So I just want to let that sink in a little bit. Because how often do we ask the questions I've listed here? Who am I? Where do I come from? Why am I here? And what do I want? Who am I? Where do I come from? Why am I here? And what do I want? So some that have logged on were asked to visualise a tree. So I'm going to actually ride you and guide you through this exercise. This is to get us sort of in the zone of the tree. And it's a visualisation which is very powerful that you can utilise to bring to mind a favourite tree that you may have. So this is our time and space, and I just want you to relax into this exercise. And we'll commence with closing your eyes. I will keep mine slightly open to read my screen. But just take a moment to close your eyes and really settle into the chair. And let the chair support you. Placing your feet on the ground firmly. Imagine deep roots that are there to hold you steady. And now, as you take in the first of 3 deep breaths, I'd ask you to slowly inhale through the nose, drawing the breath into your belly. And hold here for a moment before now exhaling through your mouth and dropping your shoulders. Hold before taking in your next breath. Again, inhale through your nose, drawing the breath into your belly. Try and hold for it just a little bit longer this time before exhaling through your mouth and letting your shoulders relax. And let's repeat that one last time. Inhale through the nose, drawing the breath into your belly. Hold for a moment. And a big exhale on this last one. Through your nose and dropping your shoulders. And then if you want to roll your shoulders around a little bit, just give them a little bit of flex. That would be great. So now, as you're settling in, your roots firmly placed through your feet and into the ground beneath us, I'd like you to bring into your mind's eye the image of a favourite tree you may have. Your favourite tree may perhaps be from your childhood, or one that you are familiar with in an open, green, expansive space. Perhaps it's deep in the forest, and one that just seems to stand out amongst the crowd. Wherever you go to seek your peace and solitude, I invite you to keep that image of your favourite tree, as I now ask you to engage with your senses of touch and smell and sound. By imagining the texture and feel of the bark as you run your hands over it, tracing around its circumference, the tree, and noticing the bark that keeps it strong, keeps it held within. What do you feel? And pretend to crush some leaves to release their fragrance. It may be that beautiful eucalypt fragrance, the smell of a tall, straight poplar, leaves, or a spruce or a fir tree. could be deciduous or not. So I invite you now to breathe in the fragrance that's been released. If you're anything like me, when I see leaves, autumn leaves at my feet, I can't help but rustle and kick them around. So listening in to the sound of the rustling leaves beneath your feet. Noticing other sounds that might come from your sacred, favourite, peaceful solitude place of refuge. I encourage you to rest here a moment, there standing in front of your favourite tree. What else do you notice about its trunk? Perhaps some protruding roots. The canopy of branches, leaves, soil. Perhaps there are flowers or fruits. Just absorb that image for one moment, for 1 minute. It's all about slowing down today. I want you to absorb that image and to get the creativity flowing. When it's time to come back to the return to the session and open your eyes, I will read a quote by Wangari Maathai Maathai to indicate it's time to return. A tree has roots in the soil, yet reaches to the sky. It tells us that in order to aspire, we need to be grounded. No matter how high we grow, it is from our roots that we draw sustenance. Welcome back. There will be moments of silence through the session as I give you time to work on your creativity and to draw your pencil, draw your tree. So I thought I'd start by just showing my tree to give you a bit of an idea of what sort of proportions that you might like to use. And basically I break it into 3 parts. So bear with me as I hold this up and hopefully we can see. The screen's probably very... So I guess it's important to have that notion of what the tree looks like for the information we're going to fill that tree with. So some instructions on if you'd like to take your pencil or pen, pencil's preferred, and just putting pencil to paper and just lightly etching out the outline of your special tree, your symbolic tree. If you consider maybe starting from the trunk area, the middle third of the page, then working your way down into the roots, making sure that the roots and the branches are wide enough to have words written in them. And so if you just start etching that out, I'll give you a moment to get that in place. You can always add extra roots or extra branches. Yeah, if you consider the branches to be a similar size and depth as the roots. And have fun. This is about having fun, guys. You're getting paid for this. So, yeah. Not my house. So just enjoy even that putting pencil to paper and just the therapeutic process of etching out and sketching out the outline of your special tree, because it will be unique and special to you. So I encourage you, as we think about what we're going to, the contents of this tree, engage your creative spark. Try and avoid using colours that are actual colours of the tree. As you could see from mine, I was without coloured pencils when I did do my exercise. But it may have been an indicator also that I was feeling a bit black and white. So that's okay too, if you don't feel like adding colour. This tree is a metaphor for our individual identity. So here is an opportunity for you to bring colour to your soul life through your drawing. So I'll move through. We can always add, as I said, areas as we go. Hopefully I've given you enough time to sort of etch out what it is you need as a starting point. But I thought it important to acknowledge your feelings, your individual feelings. So as we embark on this introspective journey, please be mindful that any feelings that may arise for you during the session today, I'd like you to take time out from the session if and when you need. There may be some snags, some snares, some roots that trip you up. And I'd encourage you to seek additional support from a mental health professional to process any concerns that may have been raised during this session. So let's get cracking on the first part, the tree trunk. And I chose the trunk because it represents your strengths and your skills, your beliefs, values and abilities that keep you standing tall. The trunk is what keeps you strong when faced with challenges and adversity. And I love the cross-section of a tree trunk because it gives us a complete story of that tree and the elements it's been exposed to throughout the many years that it stands, much like us. To help you along a little bit, I thought I would put together, I've copied a personal strengths list of, just as a bit of prompters for some that might be struggling to kind of come into their own sense of strengths. But it's nice to have 5 or 6 in there. So I'm just going to share that with you now. My apologies, I am aware there's a couple of duplications in there. Flexible, flexible. Maybe it's telling us we need to be flexible. We're surely that. I'll leave that there for a moment as you ponder some of your personal strengths. It's a celebration of you. What are you proud of? When people look at you, what do they see? And what's important to you in this core strengths that support you and your trunk, your tree trunk? Who am I? You can write it in multicolours, be as creative as you want. Bold, big, large, larger than life. Encourage you to just get a bit crazy on the page. So year by year, our wisdom grows, much like the rings inside the tree trunk, as I mentioned earlier. So identify your strengths and write them in the trunk and consider what these strengths look like in your life. Why are they important to you? How do they guide and sustain you through life? And since when did you develop these strengths and skills? What is the history or your earliest memory of having used these strengths and skills in your life? Who did you learn this strength from? Be curious. And I wonder what they would say if they were privy to this inner conversation you're having with yourself at the moment. I wonder what they would say. Just a moment to reflect and ponder on the page what you've written there. If you can think of a couple more that come to mind, the more the merrier. It's difficult for me to gauge, not being in the room, as to when people are ready to move on. So I am going to pay particular attention to the next section if everyone's comfortable for me to move on. I think you've got your tree trunks down pat. So now I'd like to move into the area of the tree roots. And I love the Moreton Bay figs and how they expose their roots, but also that reflective image that's on the left-hand side. That underneath, yeah, the subterrane. So roots, if you consider, where do I come from? I'd like you to reflect on your family of origin and your ancestry and extended family to deepen your connections. And once there is a grounding in one's roots, there can be a much firmer sense of self. Who are you? Where do you come from? What's your ancestry? And to help fill some of those roots with content, I'd like you to consider, I can give a couple of examples actually, might be something that might help. So I think they'll come through as we go through this list of considerations. So what aspect of where you come from, what is it that you value? Is it family? Tradition? Perhaps there was a favourite home where you really truly felt at ease. The underpinning roots of what makes you the person that you are today. There may be special family activities that carry you forward and things that you treasure. The rituals that families create. And friends, the family that we choose, as they say. What are some of those special activities that you enjoy? Really looking at what it is the solid foundation that holds you, that carries you, keeps you grounded, like the big roots we visualised as we put our feet down onto the ground. I was with a person and we were talking about, she had an Italian background, and she was talking about the certain foods that she used to enjoy, the village all coming together and creating together. So maybe you can think of a certain foods that have been special to you, that may evoke really cherished memories. And for her eyes lit up and her hands were almost making a hand rolling the gnocchi, and I could see this spark sort of coming through for her when we were celebrating her personhood as she was thankfully discharged from our services. So really think about some of those. Do you remember any family mottos perhaps, or sayings from your childhood. What was it you always heard? Parents, grandparents, family, friends, extended family, neighbours even. What were some of their favourite mottos or sayings? And fill that information into your roots. Now, there's certain people, either living or dead, that are or were important to you. Who were they? It's about considering their input into your personhood. What impacts have they had on you? I'm hopeful that you've got a bounty of ideas bouncing around. There's no right or wrong answers. Be free. Let your mind just run free, and just what comes forwards is calling for it to be written down on your page. Go with your gut. Just give you a couple of minutes there to think about what it is. What is it that holds you up? Oh. Okay. Sorry, everyone, if you've been having trouble hearing us. I'll move a bit closer and hopefully that will help. Some that I had listed, I'm happy to share. The Christmas traditions and harvest, like a bounty from my veggie patch. That's something that sustains me. Adventurous travels and intrepid trekking. Multi-generations for me was something that I felt was very important and symbolic. My community involvement and volunteering. And I guess instilled in me was a hard work ethic from my family. Camping trips and fond memories of sharing that with family friends. And I'm sure you've got a vast array of different things that you've been able to list down there. So I'd now like to suggest we can move on to that beautiful tree canopy, the tree branches extending far and wide. Even if you imagine, I love doing this, laying down on the green grass and just looking up and just marvelling at the structure of a tree. So liken it to marvelling at that sense of feeling proud of yourself. Look how stand you're tall. And look at that canopy that protects you. Extending out. So for me, the tree branches, they represent your future hopes and dreams and wishes that you have for your own life and the lives of significant others in your life, and extending wider to the people in your wider community. What is it that you have as a future collective hopes and dreams and wishes? I guess I'd like to suggest that this is the why are we here? What do you want? So who are we? Where do you come from? And what do you want? This is very much a focus on future. Consider what are your hopes and dreams and wishes, and start listing them down in your lovely, healthy tree canopy, the branches that extend out, the full extent of the page. And once you've thought about your lives, also, what are the hopes, dreams, and wishes that you have for other people's lives and other important people in your life? What do you hope for them? There's something about writing this down that sort of really starts to almost give you an urgency to want to chase those dreams and chase those hopes and wishes. And I was quite staggered when I went through this exercise myself, that 3 of the 4 areas that I really wanted to hone in on, I've actually been able to achieve all 3. So not quite there with the 4th yet, but I'm a work in progress, and aren't we all? We're saplings that are growing into maturity and trees. We start as little seeds. I hope you've got some fun things in there that you've been able to consider. I am trying to keep an eye on time, so my apologies for looking away from the screen from time to time. It can be outlandish with these dreams. Dream big, as they say, dare to dream. So how's your tree looking? You're filling it up with all the good sustaining qualities that you want. As we move now onto the leaves. Again, the leaves that give you shelter and shade when it is that times can be scorching and the heat's on you. You can retreat under the canopy and the leaves for shelter. So, who is or who has been important to you? So, the leaves representing people, dead or alive, that have shaped us. They can be our pets or fictional characters, groups or organisations that you've been connected to. Remembering that you might gaze at that tree, but there are generally no 2 leaves that are the same. So they're unique in their imprint and the relevance and importance that they have given to you. So pad out your tree and put the names in there of people that have been special in your life. What's made them special to you? And ask the question, why? Perhaps they were a mentor at work who could see the potential in you. Or someone, random, it could be a neighbour who taught you, how to strike roses from their rose bush. I'm really getting inventive now. None of this is written down, so I'm very much flying by the seat of my pants. I can only be me. But it's a collective cluster of leaves. When you stop and think about it, you've had a really indelible mark on you. So time now to cherish that and celebrate it. Give them nice bright colours. Who said that they all had to be brown or yellow or green? Make it whatever colour you like. Remembering that this is something you can take away and continue to work on. Maybe other people or pets that come to mind after the session. I became very aware when I reviewed my own tree of life that I'd neglected to put the people that are no longer with me, that are dead. And I look at it as falling leaves. So if you have someone that's important to you that may no longer be with us, maybe there's that, I'll remind you of that rejuvenation that happens in the process as the leaves fall down to the ground and they become composted within our roots. They're always there, constant connection, and they fertilise us. You can see now why I like the symbol of the tree. There's so many analogies we can draw from it. So now we get to the part of the fruit, the fruits of our labour. Just yesterday I was walking along and I happened across in the McKellar Centre a pomegranate tree, and I was so excited to think I could glean a couple of those before the possums got to them, so I can use them in my salad. So the fruit. Why are you here? This represents the gifts that you have received from others in your life, not necessarily material gifts, perhaps an appreciation of particular things in life or certain values that have been instilled in you. So the gifts that you've received, you can draw yourself whatever flavour fruit you like. But what have been some of the things that people have passed on to you that you cherish? And thinking about what fruits you give to others. I hope that my sound is better. I moved a little bit too far away from the microphone before. You don't need to hear my voice. This is your time. Sound good. Right. What spring bud or blossom is flourishing for you? Or how can you make it flourish? What do you need to do? I'm going to move on now to the flowers. Given I've already talked about blossom, whoops, got a little bit ahead of myself. So the flowers, why are you here? They represent your contribution you have made or would like to make on other people's lives, your community, and your planet, our planet. What have been your contributions? What are your flowers that you bring to the people around you? What are some of the legacies that are important to you that you would like to pass on to others? No point keeping them a secret. It's nice to share your flowers, share the harvest, share the bounty. Oh, I so wish I could see some of the trees, how they're coming up. Yeah. Go wild. Conscious of time, I thought I'd just move on now to the ground. And I love this particular one in the top left, that sort of light bulb moment. cultivating the ground, the autumn leaves, and how they can replenish the soil. So when looking and considering these questions I'll pose to you, they kind of sit outside the root system, if you like. They're sort of all-encompassing the soil around your roots that continue to keep you fertilised and flourishing. So just little dot points. They don't have to go within confines of your tree. They're scattered all within. So the ground, told you I'd get to self-care, represents our current lives, our interests, hobbies and activities that we're involved in, from which we can draw our nourishment. So what are some of the things that you like to do that are important for you? I wrote down my daily ritual of coffee. That's something that's important to me. It nourishes me. I've offered it as a ritual at Peter Mac with people. It's something that was a ritual for them, but they couldn't leave their room. But we shared communal coffee in the morning to keep him engaged with the outside world. And at times I've brought leaves in to patients and let them smell the essence of the leaves as I crush them to keep them connected. You could say I'm a tree hugger. Love my trees. So think about it. What is it? When we look at the different domains that we can pay attention to achieve a well-balanced self-care routine, 7 pillars, as they refer it to. What do you do that helps your mental state? What's your non-negotiable that you fit into every week that promotes new growth? How do you conserve and monitor and look after your emotional state? What steps do you have in place? Friends, family, pets. Just a few ideas. Also paying attention to your physical health and general well-being. What do you do that gives you that? I know some people find yoga is very beneficial, or a long walk is my personal favourite. Or just gazing at the waves. Maybe you connect in with the beach. That's where you go to find your recharge. Environmental. By that I mean, what is it within your home environment that you might do? Subtle lighting, or ritual of a candle, or a soak in the bath. Water is always good. What is it that you do to improve, or what could you do to improve your own home environment? Are there spiritual callings for you? Rituals that you would like to introduce into your weekly self-care regime and routine? Recreational and social. Recreational in joining a group or being part of a book club, or social engagement with family and friends. Reconnecting with your partner or old school friends. They're good pillars from which to springboard your self-care regime, because you're worth it. A little bit more on self-care. What are the activities that you find sustain you in your everyday? Where do you go to find your spiritual sap? How could you cultivate more time for these interests That's always the big question. What are your non-negotiables? What changes would you need to make to achieve them? And how would they benefit your well-being? Big question. Are you willing to make time for yourself? Perhaps it's meditation that might help you in those times. Mindfulness exercises. Making time for yourself. Investing in yourself. When you're in a field of investing your energy for others, find a little bit for yourself. I hope you've got a host of things down in your soil. And consider which ones are you willing to put on hold and which are really important for you moving forward from today's session that you're going to instigate. I feel like I'm banging on, but the regular exercise, so boosting mood and improving your health, that's the benefits. Meditation, mindfulness I spoke of earlier. Any relaxation activities. Maybe this has fostered an interest or sparked an interest in art that might be cultivated. Setting intentions is really good, very important. Goals and priorities. And we all know the old SMART goals, being specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. If you write them down, they no longer become pipeline dreams. You can actually set them as intentions. Look out for your gut health and your general diet. Eat regular meals and stay well hydrated. And make sleep one of your top priorities. Big one, I think, is practicing gratitude. We see it in so many people we're faced with in our day-to-day work. They seem to be able to see awe and wonder in the everyday life. Where do you find it? Where do you practice your sense of gratitude in those fleeting moments? Interesting, if you focus on positivity, that can celebrate the things that are going well in your life, rather than focusing on what's not going so well in your life. And crucial to stay connected with family and friends and community. You will have your own examples that you hopefully have written down. So we're drawing to a close. So I am going to move to the next slide. What can you do? As I've said, set your intentions and write them down. Maybe instigate some new conversation with people around you and create and share the tree creation with colleagues, family and friends. Important to ask for help and support others, and foster a team approach to keep your forest flourishing in both our personal and our professional relationships. And no individual tree can survive without the support of the Wood Wide Web. And in saying that, I want to share a little video, 2-minute video. Hopefully this is going to work. This is that will talk about that supporting of not only yourself but one another. And then when this video clip does finish, Anna's going to come back to the screen, so I'll disappear and you won't have to listen to my voice. It'll be over to Anna to wind up the session. So thank you. Enjoy. My apologies, there might be some...
So you think you know Wix,
Sorry.
but do you really? First up, we've got Shape Video Mask.
Trees may look like solitary individuals, but the ground beneath our feet tells a different story. Trees are secretly talking, trading, and waging war on one another. They do this using a network of fungi that grow around and inside their roots. The fungi provide the trees with nutrients, and in return they receive sugars. But scientists have found this connection runs far deeper than first thought. By plugging into the fungal network, trees can share resources with each other. The system has been nicknamed the Wood Wide Web. It's thought that older trees, fondly known as mother trees, use this fungal network to supply shaded seedlings with sugars, giving them a better chance of survival. Those trees that are sick or dying may dump their resources into the network, which might then be used by healthier neighbours. Plants also use fungi to send messages to one another. If they're attacked, they can release chemical signals through their roots, which can warn their neighbours to raise their defences. But like our internet, the Wood Wide Web has its dark side too. Some orchids hack the system to steal resources from nearby trees. And other species, like the black walnut, spread toxic chemicals through the network to sabotage their rivals. Arboreal cybercrime aside, scientists are still debating why plants seem to behave in such an altruistic way. The hidden network creates a thriving community between individuals. When you're next in woodland, you might like to think of trees as part of a big superorganism, chatting and swapping information and food under your feet.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. Well, hopefully everyone's got something something out of that today, and I guess the big message is to look after yourself.